It is Friday. I mean, it's Saturday. I'm late. Ugh. What's good, guys? Max here, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can get cinematic and just beautiful looking images in Photoshop. So how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Hopefully you guys have had a great Friday, but I mean, it's kind of Saturday, and there are many reasons why I'm uploading this video on Saturday. Just some issues in recording and other type of issues, but that's not important. The most important part is today we're talking about tutorial video on Photoshop. So today I'm going to teach you guys cool, awesome techniques on editing photos in Photoshop, how you can manipulate and control colors, dynamic range, and just improve your photos a tenfold by editing them. And it's really important to keep in mind that you need to edit all of your photos, because editing is a big part of photography or even videos. Like, I'm not gonna just bring whatever footage I got now with the audio into the timeline, just sync the audio and the video up and just continue. Obviously I spent time color grading the video, I spent time editing the audio, and even post-production stuff. I try to get the look that I want in camera by setting up the lights the way I want, the microphone the way I want. So everything is done beforehand. So the same thing you want to do with photography. You want to make sure that you take the photo that you want, the best of your ability. Take the photo, you want the photo to look great straight out of the camera. And then with post-production editing, oh, it's gonna look crispy, Instagram bangers. Just tap that into Instagram, post it on Instagram. People are gonna be double tapping it, hearts flowing everywhere. People are gonna love it. And personally, I love seeing when people double tap. 10 minutes later, you open up your Instagram and just hearts are flowing all through your stream here, and you have just Instagram lights from every person that you've ever had. It's a great feeling because you've captured something nice. There's a lot of people out there that miss that don't edit their photos at all. Doesn't matter if you use Lightroom or Photoshop, they don't edit their photos at all, and that's a mistake. You want to make sure that you put your photos through an editing stage. You don't want to just take the photo, publish it, or sell it. You want to make sure that you edit it. Editing is a very subjective thing. I'm not saying to drop it into Photoshop or Lightroom, like drench it in disgusting looking contrast, overexpose it or underexpose it, add too much vibrance, and just make it look unrealistic. A lot of great photographers, a lot of great edits, they're so subtle. Like, there are parts of the image that the photographer edits that when we back at it, it just seems like it was there from the start. It was there since you took the photo. But in reality, they still edited the photo and they manipulated these small little parts of the image to make it look different. For instance, today I'm not going to only show you guys how to edit basic color grades, the basic exposure levels on a picture. I'm also going to show you guys how you can select different parts of the image, like your eyes, your teeth, the roof, whatever you want, anything, a car in the background, the mountain, how you can select something, whatever you want in the image and just isolate it and just control the brightness, just make it different from the rest of the picture. And you gotta remember, you wanna make sure that it's not, you don't want it to stand out to the point where when somebody clicks on your image, the only thing that they see is whatever you try to exaggerate. You don't, like, let's just say you exaggerated the eyes and you made them way too blown out. You don't want somebody to click on the photo and the first thing that they see is the blown out eyes. That's when you know that something is wrong with the photo. And most photos out there, most professional photographers, they would never post their main photo straight out of the camera, because the photo never looks as good as it can straight out of the camera. They would usually tweak the photo, they'll fix up the colors on the face, the background. They won't just fix up the exposure levels of the whole picture, they'll isolate just the actual body, because sometimes you might have had bad camera settings, or wherever you took the picture, maybe the subject was just a little bit underexposed, but when you expose the picture more to expose the person, the background gets too overexposed. So instead of exposing the whole image, you select just the body, just the character, and you expose that while you underexpose the rest of the image. So things like those are things you got to keep in mind when doing editing. Keeping things subtle is so important, because that's what differentiates, if that's even a word for me. Differentiate, yeah, that's a word. Differentiate a good photographer and a bad photographer. So you want to make sure that you make subtle adjustments, bring up the eye temperature by 2-3%. It's not gonna make a big ass difference that somebody's just gonna notice off the bat. Just that it's just gonna make the image look hell of a lot better with that small little adjustment. So keep that in mind. Make sure to keep your images as subtle as possible, and essentially with that, you're going to get better looking images. Essentially, let's head on to Photoshop and I'll show you guys how I edit my pictures. I'll show you the basics of color grading, some basic manipulation tricks. And before we get into that, if you guys haven't seen my Instagram, click up here at Maxim Boyarsky. I post photos every single week. I don't have tons of photos on there yet. I'm still developing my Instagram. I'm still trying to build my name, on YouTube, Instagram, building my influence. So if you guys can support me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram and check out some of my photos. I upload, I think, 1 or 2 pictures a week now. So starting a lot of Instagram stories. Let's head into Photoshop and I'll show you guys how the whole Photoshop workflow looks like and how you can create beautiful looking images. Let's go. Okay guys, so the first thing you guys want to do is obviously turn your computer on, turn Photoshop on, get that booted up, and make sure while it's booting up to figure out exactly what photo you're going to be editing. I'm hoping that you already went out, shot some photos. I don't know if you had a photo shoot or something, or go out right now, take a photo, or download a photo off of online, or I can even link some photos that I took in the description. You can use those. Use any photo and just get that ready while it's loading. So let's load up Photoshop. While that's loading, like I said, look for a photo, figure out exactly what photo you want to edit. I already have a photo ready, so let's drag that on top and onto the Photoshop. So create new tab, choose whatever size you want. Personally, if you're trying to get a YouTube thumbnail, 1280 by 720 is the one you're going to want to go for. If you're just trying to do a basic full HD sized photo, 1920 by 1080 is your option. I'm just going to go with the YouTube size thumbnail. Name it whatever you want. Personally, I'm just going to name it test because I'm not going to be saving it, so I'm just going to delete it after I'm done. So okay, we got the thing loaded up, ready. Oh, oops. So okay, you're on Photoshop now. Go on to your folders or your saved pictures, whatever you have, wherever you're saving your pictures. And essentially now it's time to choose what photo you want to start editing. So me personally, I don't know which one I want to use. Let's look through all these. I want to try to go for one of these really nice cinematic looking ones, but there's some other really good looking ones. You know what, let's use this one. It says my stepbrother. I took some nice portraits of him, and as you see here, I dragged the photo onto Photoshop, and the first thing that it does is the Camera Raw plugin 10.1 opens up. And essentially what this is essentially the same tools that you get in Lightroom. If you've ever used Lightroom, it gives you the options to change temperatures, to change exposures, and it gives you the opportunity to tweak all of these little tiny settings to get the picture to what you want. So you can change brightness, exposure levels, and all of that stuff you can tweak right here in the Camera Raw plugin before you even get into like that isolation thing that I talked about before, just isolating parts of the images. The first thing you want to do is just to get the full look that you want, just in general. Get all the contrasts, all the whites and the highlights just the way you want them right off the bat. Personally, I think this photo looks amazing just the way it is right now, but you definitely want to tweak it to its full potential. So what we're going to want to do is start off with the temperature. I want to bring down the temperature quite a bit. I really like when it's dark and cool. I like having that dark, colder looking image, but at the same time, sometimes it might look when it's a little bit warmer. I kind of want to go for the in-between cold and warm look. The tint, I'm just going to leave it the way it gave us. So exposure, I feel like exposure for now, we don't need to tweak it. I kind of like it. We could bring it down just a bit because I want it to be a little bit darker, but exposure at -0.10 I think is nice. Contrast, I really want to bring that contrast up to define those blacks and whites. And remember, when you're editing all of these small things, you want to make sure that you compensate to each one. Just because I left the exposure at -10 or -0.10, if I feel like bringing down the highlights and the whites makes the image too dark, I'm just gonna come back to the exposure and bring it up. Just compensate with each one. Just because I put the exposure to -0.10, it's not like I'm going to just leave it at that forever and I'm not gonna touch it. If I feel like after tweaking all the other exposures and all the other whites and blacks and I feel like it's still dark, I could always tweak it and make it look good in this. So that's really important to keep in mind. Okay, so continuing on, like I'm saying, just compensate to each one. If it sounds like, if it looks like it's too dark, but you still want to bring the shadows down, or you still want to bring the highlights down, just bring the exposure up. Just compensate to each tweaking that you do. So let's continue a little bit. Highlights. You know what? I kind of want to bring down those highlights. Shadows, I feel like bringing them up would actually, it doesn't really even make a big difference, honestly, but I actually kind of want to expose a little. You know what? I think this photo looks nice without shadows. Bring that contrast up a little bit. Bring the highlights a bit down. You know what? Let's bring the shadows a bit down as well. I wanna actually make the image a little bit darker than usual. Bring the blacks down, bring the whites up. Not too much clarity, just bringing it up to at least 30% is good. Okay, so just bringing it up to 30% is just perfect for me. Let's check vibrance, for instance. These guys, you could tweak them. I like bringing them up and down. Really depends which one you're looking for. I like it where it is right here. I'm not going to tweak the colors yet because there's a whole different part of the Camera Raw plugin where you can control colors one by one. I'm going to control that in a second, but I'm really liking the view on this already. Let's bring up the contrast. I know our contrast is fine at 28. Highlights, let's actually keep it at 15 because I still want to kind of expose the face a little bit. The face and the part of the couch that you see down at the left, I want to keep it sort of like highlighted. I just want people who click on the photo, like, they see that right away. I want that actually. I really like that. The whites, that just looks disgusting. So whites can stay up at like 30, 31. Actually, no, you know what? 34 looks good. What else did I want to tweak? The blacks can go down a little bit more. That is really defined. I really like the way this looks. The blacks are just powerful. The highlights are just good enough. They're not too powerful. They're good enough. And the whites are also just good enough. As you can see, if you could zoom in on his face, it's just perfect. We can bring down the whites just a bit. And I feel like this is looking amazing already, to be honest. But you also have these other things you can control. You can control more of like the brightness, the darks and everything. You can also adjust the amount of sharpness. I feel like everything's good there. Now let's just head towards just the colors. You can control each color on its own separately. So right here we can control the reds. I feel like the couch is a little bit too much on the magenta side. So let's bring it closer to the reds. And oranges, bring the oranges a little bit closer to the reds because I want to define a little bit more of the reds. There's a lot of reds in this image, so I feel like bringing that to the red a little bit more. Blues, let's define that with a little bit of more. Let's define that with some more blue. I don't know, I think I'd rather have more of a bluish. There you go. I actually like more of like that darker blue look. I really like the way this looks. This looks so good. Oh my god, that blue looks just perfect there. As you can see on the wallpaper there, the little bit of shine. The blue really does pop out there. Aquas, I feel like this is an aqua color. Yeah, it is. So let's just make it more on the blue side. I mean, let's just keep it on the... Wait one sec. Let's just bring that to the all the way up here now. I don't know if I like that. Let's just keep it on the aquas. Keeping it aqua kind of looks really nice. I like keeping it on aqua, but at the same time, you know what? Let's just put it on the aquas. I feel like it's just going to stay better that way. So essentially the saturation part. So the hue is just how much of the color you're seeing, like what type of color, like what type of blue, what type of orange, what type of red. Then the saturation is how much of that color you're seeing. So like if I bring it all down, you're not gonna see reds at all. So essentially I've just eliminated every single red color you see. Like you could still kind of see a little bit of reds, but it's more tweaking on the orange side. So now there's no reds in the image and it looks disgusting. His lip is black, the couch is essentially black. You don't want that. I want to define the reds as much as possible, so we are actually going to bring up the saturation on the reds a lot. Oranges, it's kind of like really popping out in his face, so I feel like I'm just going to keep it as low as possible. I don't want his face to just jump out into the viewers' faces, so keep that down just a little bit. Maybe even at 0 looks fine. Yellows, you know what, let's just keep it at 0. There really isn't too many yellows in this photo. Then blues, I want to bring up the blues a little bit as well. I feel like that's all. We don't really need to tweak any other color. The reds and blues and oranges are kind of the only colors you're really seeing in this. Let's just go back to our regular things because I kind of want to tweak it again. The colors kind of brighten up the image, so I want to darken it a little bit more. Bring up that contrast even more. Let's bring it up to like 4. You know, let's just bring it back to 36 I think is good. Highlights, bring that down to 15. I mean, it was already at 15. Whites, bring that down a little bit. Blacks are really defined in this image. I really like that. Highlights, already good. Contrast is good. I feel like this photo is essentially done. Let's just bring down the contrast a little bit. I'm loving the way this picture is looking already. It's fantastic, and I feel like we're ready. We're done. So you can do whatever else you want. You can also grab these other tools. If you want to fix up the edges, like for instance on here, as you can see on the couch, since I made it kind of like a square, you can see a little bit of a line going right here and it's not really smooth. If I want to smoothen it out, I can use this tool right here, which looks like a magnifying glass. It's called the dodge tool, and you could essentially just soften up those edges right there. You could soften it up with the dodge tool and it works pretty good. It's not great, but it softens up those edges and in fact, it looks great now. Zoom out, and honestly there wasn't really too much I can do with this image. It looked great right off the bat, so there's not really too much I want to isolate. I really like how dark the edges here are. If you want to isolate more than that, if you want to just isolate his eyes specifically even more, like I said, use the lasso tool. If you want to isolate, if he's smiling, you want to isolate the teeth, you can do that. If it's a completely different image, if it's outside, if it's a landscape portrait shot and you can see the the landscape, if there's a car a little bit too dark, you can bring up the exposure on that car. If there's mountains in the background, you can brighten up the mountains. Whatever you want to do, you can do that here. This tool right here, the rectangle box right here, if you want to just select this part of the image, wait one sec, let's just eliminate that. You could select just this part of the image and you can brighten that up if you want to. You could brighten it up, you could bring the contrast down a little bit more. You can bring the contrast like that, just so you could see it a little bit more. You could bring the exposure down and just do whatever you want with it. Okay guys, so hopefully you guys enjoyed today's tutorial video. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you've had a great time. Hopefully some new things in terms of your photography game. Hopefully you're gonna get better. Hopefully now your photos are gonna be a step better. You took your photography game that whole step further, which is just gonna make you a much better, much more successful photographer. And editing photos is so important. It's a really big part of photography. Thinking about what photo you want to take and then taking the photo is one thing. Putting it into post-production, editing it, and posting it and publishing it is a whole other beast that you gotta learn how to defeat. But essentially, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys this Sunday for another video. But anyways, peace out guys. Have a great day. Be sure to go out, shoot some photography, edit some of those pictures. Send them to me on Twitter. Actually, I would love to check them out. That would be amazing if you guys can do that for me. But I'll see you guys next time.